Lance Stroll and the Aston Martin team seem to have deepened the family ties that many in the paddock consider harmful to the team's sporting performance. Since Lawrence Stroll took over the team's structure, this dynamic has been observed with caution, and it may now represent yet another obstacle in Max Verstappen's path. Opportunities outside Red Bull are slowly closing, and Fernando Alonso's recent statement only reinforces that Aston Martin is confident in the work being done behind the scenes. The big question remains, will these behind-the-scenes moves harm Verstappen? And if so, what will be the next chapter in his journey? The British team currently finds itself in an undefined position in Formula One, having so far scored only 10 points in the 2025 World Championship. However, information indicates that the team's resources and efforts are entirely focused on the 2026 season, and legendary designer Adrian Newey has already made it clear that he does not intend to make changes to improve the current AMR 25's performance. Fernando Alonso, in turn, suggested that fans should get used to Aston Martin's current position, although that does not mean the team has no ambitious plans for the near future. In a statement that surprised part of the press, the team firmly stated that it would not give up one of its main assets on the grid, Lance Stroll. The statement, which could be seen as ironic, merely confirms what everyone following the sport behind the scenes already suspected. Aston Martin, headquartered in Silverstone, has not managed to show consistency throughout the current campaign, except for the points scored in the Shanghai and Melbourne rounds. Betting on Lance Stroll's continuity may not be the most efficient strategy for short-term results. However, with the new technical regulations just around the corner, the 2026 season represents a unique opportunity for a fresh start. The team already has a solid structure and will now have engines supplied by Honda, which raises expectations for everyone involved. However, both the Japanese manufacturer and Aston Martin demand concrete results, and if those results do not materialize, the pressure will increase considerably. Honda, in fact, has been very clear about its stance regarding driver selection. The president of the manufacturer, Seiji Watanabe, stated that the same guidelines used in the partnership with Red Bull will be applied to Aston Martin. This means that the manufacturer will have direct influence over driver choices for the 2026 grid, although it is not yet clear how far this influence will go, as the current link is that of supply, not technical control. The only way to increase this influence would be through performance, should the Japanese engine prove significantly superior to the competition. Watanabe recently emphasized that despite the reduced number of available seats, Honda will continue to express its opinion on driver lineups starting from the next technical cycle. The final decision, of course, will remain with the team, but the involvement will be similar to what currently happens with Red Bull. Lance Stroll, however, has yet to prove to be a name that pleases the manufacturer, and that could pose a risk to the team's future. Additionally, there are signs that the relationship between Adrian Newey and Lawrence Stroll is experiencing significant strain. The main reason for this tension appears to be Newey's total focus on the 2026 project, leaving behind any effort to improve the current car, which deeply displeases Lawrence, who pays the engineer an annual salary of $33 million. Robert Dornbos, a former Formula One driver, was one of the figures who brought this information to light, stating that the team's internal environment is marked by egos and strategic disagreements. According to him, Lawrence has a dominant posture, but one that is currently causing discomfort within the team. It is said that Newey made it clear he does not want to work on the 2025 car, even with $1 million contract in place. This attitude has generated tension but may also be part of a broader strategy. Finishing the championship in a lower position would give the team more time in the wind tunnel, which could be useful for future goals. The relationship between Newey and Lance is also reportedly not at its best. Sources indicate that there was an internal meeting in which the Canadian driver's replacement was requested during the early races of the season. Nevertheless, with the recent reaffirmation of the commitment between the team and the driver, it seems Newey will have to accept the top-down decision. Despite his great influence, he does not have absolute control over sporting choices. The possibility of Verstappen joining the team remains uncertain. Everything will depend on market movements, and whether Fernando Alonso will stay beyond 2026. Aston Martin has clearly indicated its preference for Lance, which closes one of the seats. For Max, the only hope would be Alonso's retirement to open a path to the British team. This was already speculated even before Aston Martin officially announced its stance on the Canadian driver, and little has changed since then. If Alonso decides to extend his career beyond his current contract, it will be extremely difficult for the team to part with a driver who has played a central role in its recent growth, even if the current performance is below expectation. The potential pairing with Verstappen remains a hypothetical scenario. Still, it is important to remember that adapting to new teams is not always a smooth process, as we recently saw with Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. Although the situation is different, challenges always exist. In a scenario with Max and Lance as teammates, it is likely Verstappen would dominate the front, while Stroll would fight for occasional points, echoing dynamics already seen in other teams. Fernando Alonso also made important statements about his future. Initially determined to retire at the end of 2026, he now avoids any definitive confirmation. Commenting on his relationship with Honda and the terms of his current contract, the Spaniard said many factors caught his attention during negotiations, but that everything after the agreement's end would depend on how he feels physically and mentally. He made it clear that for now, he is motivated, but prefers to maintain the freedom to decide season by season. That is exactly why the contract signed only goes until the end of 2026. From then on, Alonso believes he will be able to talk openly with Lawrence and Lance, and together decide what is best for the team. This possible exit could open a space for Verstappen, if he is available, and Alonso chooses to end his journey. Replacing one world champion with another would give Aston Martin great exposure. Max would arrive in full force to fight for the title from day one. Considering the hiring of several professionals from Red Bull and the solid partnership with Honda, this combination could be highly attractive, especially for a driver as competitive as Verstappen. All this, however, depends on Honda's approval. It is impossible to ignore the fact that no matter how they try to justify the decision, the reality is clear. Lance has shown talent in the past, especially during his time at Williams, but he has yet to prove he can deliver consistent results with a top-tier car. That puts him under constant scrutiny, particularly after high-profile crashes such as the one in São Paulo last year and in Singapore in 2023. With all that in mind, we want to know, what is your take on this renewed commitment between Lance Stroll and Aston Martin? Do you believe this decision could backfire on the team in the future? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to check out the video that is appearing on your screen right now.